You guys are such a quiet group so far. I hope this isn't a sign of things to come for the webinar. We actually need to talk.
We're just storing up energy.
Great. Greetings and welcome, everyone, to another Educator Innovator Hangouts on Air. It's June 19th, and today we're going to get a glimpse into the upcoming Hack Your Notebook Day, a celebration on July 9th of creativity, literacy, and engineering practices through the use of paper and paper circuitry. I'm your host, Paul O., and I work at the National Writing Project as a Senior Program Associate. Today, our guests include a range of educators and makers, from the person who had the vision to create paper circuits and realized the beauty of the intersection between technical and creative expertise, Jie Qi, to the organizers behind the Hack Your Notebook Day event, to educators who will be on the ground hacking notebooks with kids. But let's let our guests introduce themselves, and we'll start on my screen from the left. So David, that would be you. Could you introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is David Cole. I'm based in San Francisco. I run a little company called CV2, which stands for Collaboration, Voice, and Vision. We work on next generation learning and doing creative learning projects with NexMap. You'll hear from NexMap in a moment. And we've had the pleasure of connecting with Jie on this project. So glad to be here.
Great. And then next up is Ira.
Hi, Paul. I'm Ira Socol. I work in the Albemarle County Public Schools at the edge of the Blue Ridge in Virginia. I'm the design program manager, and we'll be hacking notebooks at 4 different sites on Hack Your Notebook Day with all sorts of different kids and seeing what's going on.
Awesome. Next up is Jen.
Hi, my name's Jennifer Dick. I work at NexMap, which stands for New Experimental Music, Art, and Production, and I'm the program director. We're sort of the central organization for Hack Your Notebook Day, along with Educator, Innovator, and NWP, and we're super excited to have everyone here today.
Great, thanks. And Jie?
So my name is Jie. Hello. I'm a grad student right now at the MIT Media Lab, and my research is all about combining arts and crafts with electronics and programming. So thanks for having me here today in this conversation.
Great, and we're going to have to make sure that we get to show some of the amazing work that you've done with paper crafts and circuitry.
Okay.
So next up is Kim.
Hi, I'm Kim Douillard. I'm the director of the San Diego Area Writing Project here in San Diego, and I also teach a multi-age class of first, second, and third graders, and we've been doing some hacking both with children and with teachers, so we're excited about all of that.
Fantastic. Can't wait to hear more about that. So first of all, thank you to all our guests. Thank you to those of you who are watching and listening. One more thing before we get started. If you are watching this Hangout from our Educator Innovator blog space, from our Educator Innovator page, we encourage you to jump into the chat. There's a synchronous chat that's happening, and if you have questions, we'll pull those questions here into the Hangout and try to respond to them. Okay, so let's get started. For those who have not had the experience of working with paper circuitry, I want to throw out this question of what exactly is paper circuitry? What are we talking about here? And I'm wondering if, Jie, you would be able to give us an explanation.
Yeah, so for me, paper circuitry just means making electronics using traditional craft materials, especially like on paper. So for example, what I've done in the past is I've used things like conductive foils that can stick on paper or conductive paints to draw or paint electrical traces instead of using wires and breadboards. And the neat thing about that is when you start making circuitry using craft materials, naturally you start, it makes it easier to be expressive and artistic and creative with your circuitry because the materials kind of lend themselves to doing that. So maybe to explain it better, I can show a quick example of what this would look like. I'm going to try this.
That's fantastic. Wonderful.
Yeah, I'm going to try the screen share option. Although maybe easier if I just provide a link to. Oh, so one of the first projects I did was this pop-up book that has kind of traditional pop-up elements, but also uses lights and sensing to make it electronically interactive. So let's see if I can pull that up. How about you? Start screen share. Okay. This one? Is this showing up? I'm looking at a pop-up book page. Okay, amazing, cool. So this is kind of the beginning of it all. I was doing a research internship with Jie Qi, who's also researching kind of combining arts and crafts with electronics to engage more people in building all this stuff. And she told me, gee, I want you to make some sensors, electrical sensors out of paper. And so I started by making these push buttons and things that look like little buttons and tabs. But when I started making them out of paper, I realized, why make your button look like a button that's round and red? Why don't you make it look like something else, like a flower or something? So that's when I kind of, it clicked that when you're working with these materials, you have the freedom to play around and give the electronic component a personality or a story. So I started out with us making these switches, but that also looked like flowers. So this is kind of a video of the book in action. I made them page by page, and they start simply with this switch. Ooh, get rid of that. So when you pull on the tabs, it's kind of like a regular pop-up book, but also you'll notice there's a battery on there, and then as the things move, they also glow and blink, and basically because there's circuitry inside as well as the mechanical components. And so this next one is, instead of just turning things on and off, you can also make things fade in and out. And so that's kind of this scene here where it's like, oh, cool. You can make things gradually change, but you can also make them look like fish because guess what? It's paper. And so here you can see some jellyfish that are glowing and fading in and out as they also swim around. And I'll show you guys one more, which is this pop-up blue page of stars. And here in the middle there's a programmable Arduino that's actually causing the lights to flash and play. There's Twinkle Twinkle Little Star playing, and you'll notice that because it's on paper, you can fold, you can make your circuit three-dimensional, as well as decorate. So I'll kind of leave it there and go back to the screen. Okay, cool. So that's kind of an example of your electronic interactivity meets the style and the creative, crafty vibe of papercraft. Yeah. So that's kind of where it began, but also the neat thing is when you're putting circuits on paper, you can do everything else you can with paper, like cut or take notes or draw, and I think we'll be talking more about that as we talk specifically about hacking notebooks.
Great. Does anyone else have anything they want to add in relation to paper circuitry?
Well, it's general, and we'll get deeper into this, Paul, but I think it's what's really critical is we talk a lot about passion, problem, project-based learning, and one of the things Jie has done here with this project is found a great way to bring the passion into kids' work. What we found is that however we connect craft into student work, whether it's kids printing, reverse engineering and printing out historical objects in a sixth grade history class, or kids creating characters as 3D printed objects in a seventh grade language arts class, or kids building stuff as sort of math or science projects or stuff. When we get that craft in, kids just light up and the engagement lights up, and it's just like the Jie's notebooks do, and that's what we're looking for, and I think that's what's driving our involvement in it.
Yeah. On the note of excitement, one thing I've noticed is that because it's paper craft and it's hands-on, it's engaging to those who like to build as well as those who like to express, and so I feel like it reaches a kind of a diverse personality, and also because it's kind of a blank canvas, you can make it into something cute or pretty or scary or provocative, depending on your personality. So it is open to that way too. So, yeah.
And speaking of the engagement piece, I know that Kim has done some work with, I believe, a group of adults and also a group of youth around paper circuitry. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, because I think one of the things that you have expressed, Kim, is just the level of engagement and how it was hard to pull people away, excuse me, from the event and the activities involved.
Yeah, I think in all cases, I mean, it's funny that working with 6, 7, and 8-year-olds was not all that different from working with adults. One thing I learned right away is if you want them to listen, don't give them circuit or copper tape and lights. Make sure that you have that in your hands until you're done giving the directions, because as soon as they have them in their hands, there's just no stopping them. But the other thing that was really noticeable for me is that both my students and the adults wanted and wished for more time and opportunities to iterate. They wanted more than one shot at doing this work. They wanted to do, once they figured it out, they wanted to try something else, and then they wanted to try something else again. And so there's this sense that it was rewarding to them, and they were getting new ideas each time they worked with it. And I think that's a powerful piece of the appeal of it.
I think that's a really great point that you're bringing up, Kim. Something that we found in all the workshop situations, which for us have ranged from an hour to up to 3 hours, is that there never does seem to be enough time.
Yeah.
And I think that's an incredibly powerful statement about the possibility for engagement in this work, is regardless of the age or the setting, whether it's a conference or a class or a drop-in sort of pop-up event, people are really inspired by the materials and the things that they can make and express using them.
Yeah, and they seem to always want to take them home and do something more too. They want to take some extra pieces home with them so that they can continue their work.
I love that idea, that notion, because I feel like it is such a great example of connected learning. This idea that the learning that is happening can happen in academic settings, but also in our home context. That this paper circuitry work really seems to fit within that ecosystem model of learning. I love that. So I wanted to turn now specifically to Hack Your Notebook Day, and I'm wondering why Hack Your Notebook? Well, first of all, why notebooks? And then secondly, why a Hack Your Notebook Day? So I'm wondering, David, if you could come in and talk a little bit about that.
Sure, I can start, and Jen and I can tag team this because we're doing this together with a lot of you. As educators and as former English teachers, both Jen and I are former English teachers and have spent a lot of time around kids and in classrooms, the ubiquity of paper and how familiar it feels to us and how familiar books feel, and also the way, as we've just heard, that when you start doing this, you just want to do more. You incentivize yourself. This conversation about creative confidence and having the motivation and the interest to continue working, and then having something that works through time with a notebook so you can actually track your learning. And from an institutional perspective, increasingly it's becoming much more important to do that thing we've always tried to do, is to demonstrate your learning. And it seemed like a great way to capture an exploration and a process of iteration, and something it combined, as Jie will call, technical and expressive expertise, the science and the art of a project. And notebooks are very familiar to us in all kinds of places, especially in schools, and it felt like a wonderful way to reinsert the notebook. The notebook has traditionally been a place of reflection and for sketchbooks and engineering practices, but over time it's become kind of a rote activity in schools in some respects. We have Cornell Notes and lots of systems for writing notes, but this thought of the notebook as kind of an open platform for creative learning and personal expression. And Jen and I were together really compelled by this because we thought it was something that could really enter an institutional learning setting or an informal learning setting very easily and become a way of capturing an early iteration of an experiment and a discovery and a crafting process. And we weren't quite sure what would happen after that. And there's all sorts of things going on around the maker movement and the question of the opportunity for student production, where things kind of explode from there. But we were really fascinated to see what would happen if we began to look at the experimentation and discovery process in something as familiar and accessible and in many ways intimate as a notebook. And so that's how it started, and it was in that idea that we reached out to Jie and her work, because we'd seen the stuff that Jie's just shared with us, as well as a prototype notebook she did. And we were thrilled about a year ago to begin this conversation, and it's really fun to be here. But the notebook, from my perspective, and from Jen and I, kind of starts there. Jen, do you want to pick up from there? Did I miss things?
No, I think that was a great overview. I mean, notebooks are one of the most simple cross-disciplinary thinking and learning tools that I can think of. I mean, regardless of whether you're a scientist or an artist or a writer or some mix of all of those, people use journals, sketchbooks, notebooks, and they're not intimidating, and they're a great way to keep and mix all these different areas of our lives in one place. And kids get that, and educators get that, and that's, like David's saying, how we got here.
Yeah, there's something very personal about it. Kids get to do a very personalized exploration, and we're really fascinated by that.
Well, if I can throw something in, you know, and I've worked with, and I've been one of those people for whom notebooks have never been a positive. And we have a lot of kids who, you know, are so happy to see paper disappear from our schools, which we're trying to do in many ways. But for kids for whom, you know, with learning disabilities and things like that, paper has always been sort of an enemy. This is a way of making it kind of an exciting friend in a different way, is to get kids for whom, you know, for whom writing is difficult, for whom reading is difficult, to see paper as a possibility, as a creative force. And we think it, you know, it has that sort of, you know, change agent kind of thing in the minds of those kids.
I think that's a really great point, Ira. And you know, one of the things that has struck me when I've seen work in with paper circuitry and in I guess mini Hack Your Notebook kinds of events, is that the notion that the notebook could be a place where you are taking your individual interest and then trying to realize that individual interest is so different than the way in which notebooks can sometimes be co-opted in schools to be a tool to actually further, you know, a curricular goal of someone other than you. You know, generally, you know, another educator. It's like you must use your notebook to do this particular thing. And so I can imagine that alongside the kinds of challenges that this, you know, the students who you're describing might have encountered with regard to paper and pens and notebooks. There's also that notion of, you know, is the notebook really a space for me, which I think the notebook and notebooking practice has a long history of being, you know, as I like to say, you know, from Charles Darwin to J.K. Rowling. You know, if you look at her notebook sketches of planning out Harry Potter, versus that notion of the notebook as something foisted upon you that you have to use.
Maybe in the fall we can do a Hack Your Middle School Planner Day and really destroy something about it. Right?
I mean, I think it's a great metaphor for a lot of the conversations that are happening about education reform in general. This idea of moving away from highly structured, possibly over-scaffolded learning experiences for kids where bells are dividing all these different content areas versus how do we open up the ideal of school and learning and self-directed education. And Hack Your Notebook is an easy, low barrier to entry way to start thinking about how we can personalize learning experiences for everyone, whether you're the teacher or you're the student or going back and forth between those two places.
One of the things that I like about it too is that it sort of hacks at the idea that of this combination of science and writing, that science writing is writing about science, where instead in this Hack Your Notebook setting, it's really about how can the science of circuitry and the engineering of circuitry enhance your writing, your art, your expressive side. So it's not about, let me give you the step-by-steps of how I did this. This is instead this beautiful merging of the scientific processes, the STEM pieces, and the expressive side of language and words and images. And I don't think they should ever be separate to begin with, but I love how it brings them together and helps us all think about it in a different way.
And I'm wondering, Jie, if you had any other thoughts about the critical or perhaps not critical, but why notebooks? Like, so why would we want to be hacking notebooks? Because I know you started with that notebook idea and your sketchbook.
Yeah, I mean, from a very personal perspective, I always had a sketchbook or notebook with me where I just kept all of my thoughts and kind of designs. And like David said earlier, that there's like a time element to it where you can always flip back and forth to see your earlier thoughts and see where you've progressed. But also because you can so easily navigate a book in a different way than searching through digital content, you can also flip and kind of explore in a physical way that you can't in other ways. And also, the neat thing about a book is it's very portable, and it's literally designed to protect what's inside with the cover. And so you can take it anywhere with you. And I've found it really easy to take my electronic circuitry sketches in my notebook and take it all over the world and share it with people and be like, look, and you can hand it off to people. It's a space for you to create and explore, but it's also so portable and friendly that you can easily share with other people. And so rather than, for example, having your project kind of stuck on a lab bench and a big bulky board, it literally kind of collapses into this neat little object. So that was kind of the portable and kind of very convenient aspect of it. And the other part is, again, because my notebook is where I did my thinking originally, being able to prototype within that space allowed, I guess, the various parts of my brain and the kind of prototyping that I do to come together, like, right, the creative, the expressive, the taking notes so I remember what I'm doing and learning, but also trying it out so that I don't have to like think and then do something and then come back to it to see if it works. I can just do it all in one go. I guess it helps the iteration that Kim was talking about earlier too, in that way.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So I'd love to be able to move on now to the Hack Your Notebook Day, which is coming up July 9th. And I'm wondering, first of all, for any of you who would like to weigh in, what is Hack Your Notebook Day, and what will that look like? So I wonder if actually David or Jen would like to take that on.
I'll start, and Jen can pick up. You know, and this also, Paul, this will come back to you, I think, in some respects around Educator, Innovator, and what and the summer of making, gaming, and connecting. Am I saying it correctly? I keep forgetting it from last year's term. But the idea of a pop-up event that people could participate around the country on their own terms, on their own schedule, we've set it up to happen on a single day, July 9th, and many people are going to take part on that day, which is just great, and create kind of a pop-up model for the experience. And the goal is that people will work with their notebooks, whatever form that takes, introducing some circuit stickers from Chibitronics, which is the project and the company that Jie's working with for her circuit stickers, and play with them and mess around with the potential for circuit creation in terms of simple circuits, parallel circuits, switches, and messing around with the form of the notebook itself, and then sharing the results of that work out through different communities, the G+ communities and other social networks, so we can see how people are looking at this question. It's really designed to be a type of activity that could happen anytime, but we're focusing it on the 9th to sort of give it a single day in the calendar. But we're really eager to see where that goes and extend it to as many people as we can. We've had great luck talking to folks across the National Writing Project, which is, as a lot of people on this call know, is just a wonderful summer. Among other things, a summer professional development network. It's very, very impressive in terms of what people do around these practices, and this just seemed like a great way to have a kind of platform for a deeper exploration. Jen, you want to go? I'm sure there's more.
It's been really exciting to see the diversity of people and organizations who are interested enough in this to run their own Hack Your Notebook Day events. We've got a number of writing project sites around the country that are doing professional development with their educators as part of their summer institutes. But we've also got a workshop happening at the Tech Museum of Innovation in San Jose, and a couple of schools, including Albemarle County schools, that will be participating. So we have youth participating, we have adults participating, and it's just going to be really great to see what people make and what their takeaways from the event are beyond being able to make something really cool and fun.
And as well, a couple of U Media centers have signed on in the Bay Area. I know that Jen and David, and I'm hoping to join you there. Melissa Techman, who's in the chat. Hi, Melissa. She will, we hope, be in the Bay Area as well and join us at the San Francisco Public Library, the U Media Center there, where I believe logistically, David, you and Jen will be available via several Hangouts on air over the course of the day.
Yep.
Is that correct?
That's right. Yep. Yeah, we just connected with Kathy Cormier at the San Francisco Public Library, and it's great that Melissa's on the chat, and if it works out that she can be around on the 9th itself in town, that'd be great. But we'll be doing some Hangouts through the day from the library as part of the conversation that's going to happen around the event.
And speaking of those Hangouts, and speaking of Melissa, because she's a teacher in Albemarle, I'm wondering if you, Ira, could talk a little bit more about what this is going to look like on the ground in Albemarle.
Well, we're trying to, we're bringing it into what we call our sort of Maker Summer, and this is our second Maker Summer experience where we try to sort of help move ourselves forward in re-envisioning education with stuff we do in the summer. So we've been steadily increasing the number of our schools that replace traditional remedial summer school with, you know, Maker Summer instead, where we teach with making across the board, and we'll be doing this we'll be doing the Hack Your Notebook at 2 different sites for that, one in elementary school and one in middle school, to see what we get in the different places. The elementary school is different. It's a very free-form program where kids sort of as concept challenges at the beginning of each week, but really go off and do their own stuff. So this is a very, this will be really exciting to watch. The middle school, summer school has more of an engineering and design make focus around it, so we'll see how that goes there. And then we have 2 other sites. One is we have a sort of huge coder dojo that's now grown to over 1,000 students involved in it, and we'll have a group of those students participating and sort of experiencing that there. So this is a much more free-form thing where, you know, it's not a part of traditional school at all. And our 4th site is a pop-up maker education site that we're doing in a massive trailer community we have. It's dominantly Latino. We've borrowed a trailer from a church and have made it a maker space for the summer. This is a drop-in program for the hundreds and hundreds of children in that community, and we'll give that group an opportunity to participate too. So, and that'll be around a lot of maker activities, but also around theater, which is the sort of language component we're building in there. So we think we're trying a whole bunch of different things, as we often tend to do. Let's try a bunch of things and see how it goes, see what we learn from it. So it'll be 4 very different groups in 4 very different places, coming out of 4 very different activity sets, and we're excited to see what happens.
That's fantastic. A couple of things to note. One is that it would be great, Ira, and I know that we've talked about this, to figure out ways that the work of your youth could be documented. And I know that Jen put in the chat a link to a Google Plus community around, you know, for practitioners, but I would say also for young people who are interested in this notebooking work and the paper circuitry work. So I think that could be potentially an interesting place to aggregate documentation of what sounds like very exciting work that's going to be happening July 9th in Albemarle.
Well, we're gonna try to document as much as we can with video and with tracking students' projects and uploading stuff to the community. We'll also have those 4 sites linked in a Google Hangout themselves during the event, so that the kids can talk to each other and you know, support each other and what's going on. We always think that when we do something like this, the less we say as adults, the better. The more, you know, the work gets far more creative when we shut up more and observe more. So,
yeah, I agree. But yet, that will not stop me from talking, because what I will say is that I think, as well, I believe David and Jen, one of your hangouts on that day will be with Albemarle. Am I correct in thinking that? And I just wanted to put that out there because we will later at Educator Innovator, I think, document the times for when these hangouts will occur, and people can view if they want to see and comment on in a chat the kinds of work that is being talked about or the conversation that's happening. Jie may also join those hangouts if she's available. I'm not sure if she is, but I think it could be an exciting possibility to have young people connect with Jie and connect with David and Jen. So lots of interesting stuff. I didn't know if anyone wanted to add to that, and I also did want to get to Kim because I know that she has some work that is happening locally in relation to Hack Your Notebook Day. But did someone want to add?
Before we transition to Kim, really quickly, I put a link in there for another online platform called Project MASH, which is youth-friendly and youth-safe. It's currently in alpha development right now by the Pearson Foundation and the New Learning Institute. But we have put all 4 of the basic activities around Hack Your Notebook Day on there. So if anyone's interested in that, let me know. I can connect you with the people running the alpha. But that would be a youth-friendly space where kids could present and share their work.
Cool.
So Kim, would you like to talk a little bit about what you have planned at the San Diego Area Writing Project?
Sure. We actually ran an advanced institute at the end of May where we hacked our notebooks. We spent actually all day, so it was a longer period of time. We worked from 9 to 3 and really talked about the idea of making and the idea of merging the STEM and the expressive writing pieces together. And got our own teacher leaders pretty excited about this possibility. And then we're going to do Hack Your Notebook in our Summer Institute on July 9th, so that ought to be interesting. And I told David already, we're doing a little mini-make next week because I'm going to be sharing what I did with little kids with the folks in the Summer Institute, and so they'll get a chance to do a little bit of making, pretty controlled, small amount of time, and then take that on to the next step on Hack Your Notebook Day and go a little bigger and a little freer with it at that point. But we're also doing some notebook hacking in one of our youth programs, but it just won't be on Hack Your Notebook Day because it happens at the end of July. So it'll be taking place there, and the teachers who were getting to play with electronics at the end of May will be in that program feeling pretty comfortable and confident that they can at least make a light up so that they can help kids as they hack their own notebooks and you know, find their own direction with it.
Wonderful. Amazing stuff. And I think from the outset, when we began thinking about Hack Your Notebook Day, we realized that for some people, the notion of focusing on a particular day wouldn't make sense, given that there's all kinds of professional development happening. So really, I think, you know, hack anytime, and but you know, hack your notebook day if you can. I want to throw out another question because David and Jen are former English teachers. Kim is involved with the writing project. Ira, I know for a long time as a writer. But I'm going to pose this to Jie, and then I would like to open it up to everyone else. I'm really curious about why, not even why, but the connections between literacy and this kind of making and this kind of paper circuitry. What do you? Because I think for many people the STEM connections are perhaps a little bit more obvious, but you know, we have seen, I think, in the writing project, huge take-up of this work, and so I guess maybe the general question is, you know, why do you think that is? And in general, what are the literacy connections in this work?
I don't know if I can speak to literacy precisely, but what seems to have been unique about this approach for building is it kind of lets you, it lets you create a thing that definitely works, right? Like a light, you know, it works when it glows and all of that. But once you have this, you literally also have a blank canvas, a blank sheet of paper around it, and that lets you kind of then add whatever other craft element you want. And so for some people, that's drawing a scene or adding a picture, but for others, it could be highlighting a form of poetry or highlighting a plot point in a story. And I feel like it's that because it's so abstract and you can turn it into whatever you like, it's maybe helped kind of seed the creative side of like building a story or something like that. I feel like it's that mixture of hands-on and getting something that you definitely know successfully works, pushing forward something creative that kind of builds the bridge between the science STEM debugging side and the more expressive critical thinking and writing side. I also think both take a lot of patience and thinking, and that kind of works together well. At least that's what it's been like for me.
Yeah, I think too, this whole idea of systems thinking, which seems more natural in the circuitry piece than it does in the writing piece, actually has had this tremendous sort of flooding over to the writing side. And it was kind of what Ira was talking about earlier, about how some students don't see themselves as writers and see that the notebook is more of an enemy because they can't do it right. And I feel like it's another way to help writers, whether they see themselves as writers yet or not, understand that their writing isn't about a right way. It's about figuring out the component parts. It's about figuring out what you want to say, and that there's not one way to do it. I think we've had a lot of years now in schools where unfortunately some kids have been taught that there's only one way to write, and there's, you know, a certain number of words in a sentence, that number of sentences in a paragraph, and the only audience is whoever you turn your paper into. And I think this explodes that and changes who the audience is and changes the way you can approach all of those words and images, and know that there's a trial and error piece that's important to writing as much as there is I can't even talk, as is important in electronics and building and making and tinkering. That we have to tinker with our writing just like we have to tinker with other things.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to echo what you were saying, Kim. The whole idea of scientific inquiry, no one would think that you're going to solve a science experiment by thinking about it and just standing back from the bench. You have to kind of go make connections and try things and see what works and keep yourself safe and try it again. And the process reinforces itself. And it's the same thing in writing. But I think it just makes it much more accessible, and also it creates the idea of an audience. Kids, especially in writing, when you write, kids can get frozen up thinking they have to do it just right, as you say. But as you make your way through, documenting it on your own terms, thinking that you're doing it for yourself. Now I'm ready to share what I've got. I'm ready to share it publicly. I don't want to share it publicly. You make those choices, and you sort of develop your own rhetoric and your own language for it. It can be visual. It can be in terms of words. It's just very playful, and also you develop your own systems. So the systems thinking piece is huge. It's very powerful, and it gives more and more kids access to that kind of curiosity and that way of doing an experiment in whatever that can mean.
And I think nothing works. We know this. Nothing works for kids in school unless we let kids unleash their voice, find it, and unleash it. And whatever that takes, whatever form it takes, it's not. And we talk a lot in our school system about being in a post-Gutenberg era. This is not a time anymore where writing is a fixed thing that remains the same in most cases all the time. It's sort of back to a pre-Gutenberg thing where people get to hack everything and change things and adapt things for themselves. This is one really strong lesson in that. It's a lesson in the fact that communication involves more than alphabetical letters typed or written on a page. It's a lesson in in adapting things, you know, to your own interests and your own things. It's a lesson that science and mathematics is not a separate thing from art and literature. It's a really powerful set of experiences for kids to get into as a sort of mini exposure to the fact that the world has changed, and we in education are starting to realize that for them.
Cool. I really like what you said about it's not just one medium. I think that's what, at least personally, worked for me, which is that I love the engineering side and I love making craft, and I like writing too as well, actually. But when you put all of these together, they don't just kind of add up. They multiply. Writing becomes way more interesting. The craft itself becomes more interesting with the interactivity and then the content of the words, and then they all kind of become better. And as a result, maybe I wasn't as comfortable or interested in the electronic side, but now that I know that it's so powerful in making my craft or writing more interesting, cooler, expressive, I'm more compelled to learn that piece too. Likewise, when I built circuitry, but then I learned about some craft technique, I realized it made the circuit way cooler. So I was able to be inspired to learn more about craft as well, and they all kind of inform each other that way.
Yeah, I think it's really important to give people a chance to synthesize these different skills and content areas on their own terms, and that's one of the things that both paper circuitry and notebook hacking, I think, is a great sort of entry level into exploring that. Natalie, Jie's friend and colleague, who has also worked with us to develop an internet-connected notebook, had this great quote when she was talking about her process. She built the book from hand because she's also a crafter and had done bookbinding classes before. So she designed her book, built it from scratch, and she was saying that as she was putting it together, binding the book and selecting the paper, cutting the paper, putting her circuit in the back for the Wi-Fi chip, that she saw her watercolor materials, her electronics materials, and her bookbinding materials all on the table surrounding her, and that it was just such this wonderful moment to have these different practices in our life come together in a project.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in and say quickly that in hearing all of you talk and in experiencing this work, one of the terms that comes to my mind is this notion of multiliteracies. This idea, I think that, and that's a term that has been around for a while, I think coined by the New London Group. But I think, as Ira was saying, as all of you echoed, I think this notion of literacy as being something that perhaps involves the kinds of compositions that don't necessarily simply need to focus on, the alphabet or text. That there's a literacy involved in this kind of making, and clearly there are multiple literacies involved in this kind of making. So I think it's exciting and groundbreaking, what's happening here. And we're going to see more of this on July 9th. And so to get from that lofty sort of space to the practicality of A, how would someone participate in Hack Your Notebook Day if they wanted to at this point? And B, what are the kinds of tools that people are engaging with? Can we see or get a glimpse of the different activity models that participants, whether young people or adults, might be engaging with?
So I guess I'll pick up this next section here. So to get involved, you just need to set up a day and invite some people, get your materials, and start hacking, and hopefully share the work that you're doing. I did share the link in the chat to the Google Plus community, and I'm going to share my screen now to look at some web pages we put together that have material links and resources and things like that. So let's see if we can get the technology to work here. All right. So going to the NexMap website, I'll go back to the very beginning so you can see how to navigate there. We're at nexmap.org. And from the home page here, if you go to Inside Out, that's the name of our education program, and click on 21st Century Notebooking. And of course, my internet's super slow because you're all watching this. You'll see that if you scroll down, we've got a nice little intro video about paper circuitry and hacking the notebook. But here, if you click on the icon with Hack Your Notebook Day, it'll take you to the project main page, where you can learn a little bit about the context around how the event got started. This is a link to a blog entry about our first simple hack, of which you can see the pictures over here. And then if you scroll down, this is where you'll find the meat of your resources here. So for materials, to find out what's in the kits, which David is putting together through CV2, this is everything that the sites that we've been talking about today will be getting. But you can also purchase these independently if you don't have time or the means to go through CV2. And there's also additional materials that are more art-focused that we recommend that you also provide for your participants to help push the creative and personalization aspect of it a little bit further. If you are interested in buying a kit, they are still available, although I don't think they'll arrive in time for the official Hack Your Notebook Day, but the web form is right here, and David can be in touch with you about dealing with that.
Okay. Yeah, I can just jump in and say that, hey, Kim, your kits are on their way.
I got my tracking number this morning.
Very
Thank
good,
you.
good. And Ira, yours will be coming shortly. So what Jen is talking about in that short punch list there is just an assembly. It's in a little art supply box, and it's just a collection of things. As Jen was saying, you can buy any number of these things separately. Circuit sticks are available, and then a bunch of, I think, Jie, they're now in Makershed. I just saw that, right?
Yeah. So if you want to get them kind of faster, right now they're available on Makershed, which is, I'm going to post a link. I'll just post a link here. And they're also on Seed. And then later on, in addition to LEDs, we also have sensors and microcontrollers, and those are available on the original site, which is our crowd supply that helped us fund this project in the first place. So those are options. So right now, if you wanted to get your materials faster, I think Makershed would be a place to go that can they have the stock, and they also can ship faster for you. So
yeah. So there's you can do it a number of ways. You can do it piecemeal and buy your own parts and pulling from these different sources. Depending on your timing, we're putting together these kits. You can find information on what's coming in that web page that Jen's showing us right now.
And so here, this is a link to different places where you can get materials that we personally have been using, and they all link out to different suppliers. So if you do want to hack your own kit together, this is a place you can start. And Jie's website also has links, as well as the 21st Century Notebooking Google Plus community. People are also sharing the resources there for different places you can find things.
And just a quick shout out, I recently posted some video tutorials for the various types of activities that you can do, like making different kinds of switches and pressure sensors, and that's also on the main Chibitronics site under Education. So there's more templates and resources there to check out.
Great. So beyond the materials, we've also put together some educational resources to help support the experience, hopefully. So if you click on the resources page, you see we have 4 step-by-step activity sheets for people who feel more comfortable having that level of direction. And I'm updating them. So if anyone has any feedback, please do send me comments about the usefulness, readability, clearness of these. You can see I ran a set of updates today, but I'll continue to update those probably until the day of. But these are free for you to download and print out and use however makes sense for your own audience and set of learners.
And Jen, can you make one for series circuits too?
Yeah, I haven't. I'll see what I can do. I'll put that on my to-do list.
A good idea. And I noticed a lot of people in workshops, they like accidentally make series circuits and parallel circuits, even though they're harder to make. I guess
Yeah.
conceptually it's pretty fun and useful to understand the difference between the two.
Yeah, I think so. And I think once they do, they can choose accordingly, and that's always a tricky piece for them.
So we'll try to get those done before Hack Your Notebook Day. I'm not sure if we'll be able to get them out by the 9th, but we'll see what we can do. For digital resources, we worked with Chad Sansing, who is a webmaker mentor he's also a NWP teacher. And so we have a series of web resources for educators in a teaching kit that we've collated. And so this is, again, a more structured, formal look at how you might run a Hack Your Notebook event, where we have the learning objectives and how to prepare the space, all of the different resources we've been talking about, and then a suggested agenda that goes from a sort of front-loading activity called human circuits, where people play act how circuits work, through the hands-on making, and then some discussion and documentation. So this, again, is on our website, and if you have any feedback, again, we'd love to hear it. But these all click out into different how-to activities. So again, if you want a lot of direction, you want a lot of support, you'll see that we put these together, and hopefully you'll find them helpful.
And just as an aside, because they're what you just showed, Jen, are built in WebMaker, they themselves are remixable. So if you engage in Hack Your Notebook Day and you realize that actually there's a set of steps that you think make more sense, you can hack that activity kit, that teaching kit, and turn it into your own.
Yeah, it's such a great feature that WebMaker has. You can see I'm moving my cursor around for the little remix button. And I would love to see the different remixes that everyone has, because again, we all have different sets of circumstances and learners and preferences. And so it's a really great resource to be able to see and do that. And then finally, we've got some animated GIFs that you're seeing that sort of walk you through beginning to end for the 3 different types of circuits. There are also video demos if you click on this link that are a bit longer. They go into more detail and they explain the materials a bit. And then we also have some video tutorials here for different ways you can make power lead for your hacked notebook, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a second. So far, so good? Okay, so then for the workshop model, this is a pretty traditional one where highly facilitated, very carefully led, taking people along step by step. But some places prefer more of a discovery method where you could just pass out the how-to materials, set up the stations, and then have roving helpers. And again, it really comes down to you knowing your audience and knowing the people that you're working with and gauging their own level of confidence in either self-directed or highly facilitated hacking experiences. What we're going to be trying at the Tech Museum is sort of a hybrid where we'll have stations where there is that step-by-step demo, make along with me model, but also roaming workers for the people who prefer to work independently and sort of figure it out on their own can do that, but also be supported. And again, that's something else we'd love to hear is what sort of models are working well for what audiences and what places.
Great. I got kicked off for a second, and now I'm back. And I just wanted to, I don't know if you heard this piece, but I just wanted to say what an amazing set of resources. And I know it's taken a lot of effort on your part, Jen, to put those together. So I think those are wonderful, and what a fantastic toolkit, basically, that people will have as they enter into Hack Your Notebook Day. So we're coming to the end of the webinar hour. I wanted to give you each a chance to say to share one final thought in relation to the paper circuitry work in general or to Hack Your Notebook Day. So let's do this. And I hate to close the conversation because it's been so rich and amazing, but unfortunately we have to. We have other things that we need to get to. So let's go from my right to left this time. So Kim, one last closing thought.
I guess one of my big hopes, I guess that's what I want to leave with, is a hope that by doing this work with adults, they will be able to see the power of this work with students. And so having a sense of the playfulness and the possibilities as they explore, I hope that I work with so many classroom teachers that they can take this back to their classrooms and really expand their own idea of what is possible in their classrooms with students and move away from those things that take away student voice and bring back those voices, release them, as Ira said earlier, which I really love that idea.
Great, thanks, Jie.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I just want to say, well, thanks for having me here first. I'm really just genuinely excited to see what people do with this, because it's pretty mind-blowing from my end to think that, like, you know, a year and a half ago, there were just not that many people making electronics on paper and drawing pictures around it, and suddenly there's this whole community growing, and people like Jennifer and David making amazing resources, people like Kim and Ira who are sharing it with real students, and it's just neat to see people do things I would never dream of doing, and that's really cool, and I hope, you know, people are excited to share with others too. So looking forward to that. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Jen, last thought.
I just want to thank everyone for joining us today, your interest in this project, and your willingness to share your thoughts and your learning communities with us, because like Jie said, you know, we really want to see how this works with real people and real learners, what they find valuable, and how we can use those practices to improve all of the educational experiences that we have.
Wonderful. Ira?
Well, you know, for me, I just encourage anyone who can get involved with this any way they can. I think one of the things we've learned is that when kids make, engagement goes way up, voice goes way up. It's just a powerful tool. So jump in. You know, you don't know what'll happen. Find a group of kids, find a group of adults, do it as multi-age as possible, and see what happens.
I love that. David?
Well, you know, there's really not much else to say at this point. The last person to go. There's not much to say. But I think a lot of what's been talked about, I think people jumping in and just seeing, it's all about kind of getting back to a sense of what's possible and what your comfort level is, and making and seeing how far you can go with it. And I'm very interested to see what the different groups do. So if anyone's listening and people working with kids or adults, every comment, every example has a lot to say, and we're learning a lot from that. And it's very inspiring to see what people are doing. Kim was in a kindergarten class. She shared a picture of, she made a parallel circuit, or one of your people, remember Kim made a parallel circuit with conductive thread woven through a page of paper. It was just such a simple...
Those were adults, yeah.
Yeah, it was such a simple demonstration of what's possible. And between things like that and also the circuit sticker suite that Jie has created, it's got its own sort of ladder in terms of complexity and what you can do with the different stickers she's manufactured and designed. There's just a lot to be learned at every level. So I echo everything you all said, and thanks for the folks listening. We're really looking forward to seeing what happens.
And I as well am looking forward to seeing what happens. I want to thank all of you, all of the guests. I especially want to thank Jie, because one of the things that I think has been remarkable about this work over the course of the past year and a half has been Jie's accessibility. I feel like that has made a huge difference for all the educators that she has come in contact with. You know, to be able to be in direct conversation with this person who has realized this amazing vision. And I think that goes for all of you too. I think all of you have been incredibly accessible. I hope I'm not letting the cat out of the bag and now you'll get tons more email, but I think that's really been true. And I just want to echo the fact that it is exciting to see the community that's growing. And I'll just add one thought that I had at the Digital Media Learning Conference during a meeting about this, perhaps even this day, I'm not sure, the Hack Your Notebook Day, but one thing that is really exciting to me beyond all of the things that you talked about is the degree to which the notebook now has regained its place as an instrument for one's aspirations. I was likening this Hack Your Notebook idea and the way in which it's rolling out as like the Chauncey Gardner of tools, basically. And if you remember from the book Being There, the Jerzy Kaczynski book, Chauncey Gardner was this person on whom everyone projected their hopes and aspirations. He was everything to everyone, and I feel like the notebook is that way too. People gravitate towards this open space of possibilities that is powered by circuitry and their imagination. So I think that's wonderful, and I can't wait to see what gets powered up on July 9th. So we're at the end of the hour. We just want to take this last minute to thank you. So thank you again, and thank all of you who are watching. This Educator Innovator webinar and the Hack Your Notebook Day is part of the Summer to Make, Plan, Connect, as David mentioned earlier, where adults and young people alike are engaging in activities powered by connected learning. If you're interested in finding out about other opportunities like this one, check out the Summer to Make, Plan, Connect website at makesummer.org. And if you'd like to keep abreast of future opportunities from Educator Innovator and partners like the ones we've heard about today, please sign up for the Educator Innovator monthly newsletter at educatorinnovator.org, and follow Educator Innovator on Twitter at @innovates_ed. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Thanks everybody.